Well, as the altcoin markets looks to break out, which altcoins do we expect to have a really, really nice price rally? We got Forrest joining us today. You know, as you can see, the empty seat next to me. We kicked Rob. You know, he had his day yesterday. Well, today, we're bringing the experts on the show. And then, you know, Forrest put out a tweet that went viral. And he had a lot of crazy price predictions. XRP to $50. Litecoin of $500 and Fartcoin of $33. I'm going to kindly ask that he explain himself. What does he mean? Are these his favorite altcoins going into this bull market cycle? We're going to talk about what Arbitrum is doing, what Base continues to do. Are they fumbling their number one spot in the Ethereum ecosystem with their coin everything? I'm going to get Forrest's take on that, and we'll just take a look at the markets, and we'll talk a little bit about Bitcoin and tariffs, and one metric that is telling us a big price move is coming for BTC. Which way, up or down? We'll talk about that and much, much more on today's episode of Sin City Crypto. Let's go. Hello, welcome everyone. My name is David. I'll be one of your two co-hosts today. I'm excited to be here. Those of you that celebrate Easter, happy Good Friday. We're going to make it a good show, Good Friday. You know? And so what better way to have a good show on Good Friday than to kick out the loud, annoying one who never lets me get a word in and bring on a man as esteemed and polished as my man Forrest here. Forrest, welcome back. You know, just a heads up, today's show is what it would feel like if me and Rocco got together, kicked Robin out, and then we brought you on as a second co-host. So just keep that in mind as we move forward, my friend. All jokes aside, thank you for joining us, brother. Got a lot to talk about today. You know, you had a post that went viral. It's got over 500,000 views. I'm not going to get into that right now. I want to get into a little bit of BTC, and then we'll get into alts. And I do want to share this chart with you, Forrest, and kind of get your take. We talked about this yesterday. The total 3 chart looks like it's about to break out, or it's broken out of this falling wedge, and it's testing that trend line as support. And so we'll break this down. And also, I think the more important question here is going to be, Forrest, is, okay, total 3 is breaking up. Well, which ones are going to be the biggest winners there? And so we'll get your take on that. But first, also, Rocco, anything Robin Super Chats that's under $100, we are not reading it. So you can learn and not be so cheap. All right, let's start here. A tariff war supports Bitcoin's adoption at dollar's expense. This is a post by blockchainlab.co. A prolonged tariff war is likely to isolate global trade, prompting countries to diversify their foreign exchange reserves. Gold is unlikely to keep up with the demand, and Bitcoin has clearly emerged as a substitute. Multiple countries are likely to set up their own Bitcoin reserve by 2030, as per Richard Tang, the CEO of Binance. You know, we shared yesterday between CZ and obviously Richard Tang and Binance. They're saying there's a lot of countries that are reaching out to them and asking them to help them set up a strategic reserve. And they said, in fact, the U.S. is way ahead of the rest. And I'm sitting there saying, well, what did the U.S. actually do? Sign a piece of paper saying we have a strategic reserve. They haven't really done anything. And so, Forrest, I think this tariff narrative and the trade war, China, U.S., the back and forth, I think that's keeping a lot of investors at bay. What's your kind of, if you were to look forward maybe 3 months from now, we're heading into the summer, what are your thoughts on where the markets are? Do you think it's as easy as, hey, once USA and China agree to a deal, the rest will be seen as just not really a big deal and then the markets will rally? Or do you think there's more to it?
Yeah, a lot to unpack there. So, you know, why is Bitcoin, why should Bitcoin do well, and why is gold doing well in a tariff war or a trade war? You essentially need, this highlights the need for a decentralized store of value that you can send across borders without being affected by capital controls or tariffs, right? We're in a trade war, or even like a bigger kinetic war with China or Iran or Russia. All of a sudden, you can't send money to any of these countries, or you might not be able to send money to countries that are allies of them, or countries that are not allies of the US, or what have you, and vice versa. So Bitcoin being able to digitally send value across borders without permission from governments is it's essentially like the most bullish use case for Bitcoin. I don't know why these articles always seem to hate on gold. I think gold's going way higher. It's been the top performer of the year. I don't necessarily think Bitcoin's going to replace gold. I think both can go up. You've got a digital version and a physical version. Makes a lot of sense to me to have both. But yeah, I think obviously, like, as far as risk assets go, and as far as the stock market goes, and maybe even some altcoins, what the market seems to be looking forward to is some sort of deal with China, walk back on tariffs, deals with other countries, so we can just have some more certainty. The problem is it's really hard to make long-term investments in the U.S. or even really anywhere, in terms of business investments, or manufacturing investments, or whatever type of investments. If you don't have certainty, if policy could change in the next couple of months, how do you go and commit to investing on a 20-30 year time horizon on manufacturing in the US, or moving your company to the US, or whatnot? So I think the market just needs clarity, as soon as possible.
Amen to that. And Forrest, do you think that clarity again, and maybe you answer the question in your response, but do you think that clarity is as simple as just a trade deal with China, or do you think there's some other things that you kind of have on your radar?
I think it depends. I mean, I think, to be fair, like, the way that the Trump administration has gone about this whole tariff thing has damaged and kind of scarred the market in terms of creating a lot of uncertainty, just because it was kind of so. I mean, yes, he did say he was going to do tariffs, but just the degree to which the tariffs were, and the escalation of the trade war with China was so abrupt, that I think it's created a lot of kind of like long-term uncertainty. Like, Trump can just kind of do anything at any point, and nobody really, trusts whether or not that's, if he's going to stick to this deal for a long period of time. But yeah, I do think for the most part, if we get like deals inked with the vast majority of countries, and then obviously the biggest one being China, and these deals are agreed upon, and there's like terms that kind of cement it for a longer period of time, 10 plus years, then yeah, I think the markets can live with that, and will react quite positively to that.
I 100% agree with you. Here's the thing, and I'm not going to sit here and pretend like I'm a tariff expert, but just some common sense would say, if you want to put pressure on the number one exporter in the world, I think they are number one. Go to the allies first, make a deal with them, and then collectively you can go to China. And then if they start doing the tit for tat, you can kind of shut him out. But the way he's trying to do now, the problem is he's pissed off the EU, he's pissed off, I don't know, other countries, and so it's kind of in this weird spot. But again, at the end of the day, he's taken the let me take the knife and just one go in there versus slowly. And so once everything is done and the scar heals, I think the markets are going to absolutely explode. Forrest, there's a lot of people, and let me share this first, and then I'll ask you this question. So this was a post by CoinDesk. Bitcoin volatility expected as 170,000 Bitcoin shifts from mid-term holders. These are holders that hold for anywhere between 3 to 12 months. Bitcoin is likely headed for a period of heightened volatility, as 170,000 BTC worth a little over $14 billion have moved from wallets held for 3 to 6 months, a cohort often linked to market turning points. On-chain behavior from this group has historically served as an early signal for major price action. When large amounts of Bitcoin shift out of this cohort, it can indicate growing uncertainty or strategic positioning ahead of an anticipated market event. And this is kind of the chart they're referencing. This is again from CryptoQuant. Forrest, do you put anything into this metric here, or are there any favorite metrics that you look at to where you can identify or maybe try to foreshadow volatility or a big move coming? What are your thoughts on this one?
Yeah, I'm not super familiar with this particular metric, but it seems like it's just kind of outlining the fact that a lot of Bitcoin's changing hands, if I'm not mistaken,
Yeah.
or, perhaps people are just crossing a certain threshold of holding for a longer period of time. But either way, I think, I think we're very likely moving towards a turning point. I think we're very likely bottoming out and probably going to move higher. could absolutely be wrong. A lot of factors to take into account, but I think this entire uptrend going back to $15,000 Bitcoin is just one large slow accumulation, and there's a lot of volatility ahead of us, but ideally in the positive direction. I think my price targets have been substantially increased in the last couple months.
Yeah. And which is crazy. We've known each other for a long time. You've been coming on our show for a very long time. And you've always been very, I don't want to use the word timid, but you've always been very conservative in your price predictions, right? I think it was like 7-8 months ago. I think your top for BTC, correct me if I'm wrong, for us was somewhere between like 120 and 180, 120 to 180K. And so for me to see someone like you, who, I'm not trying to, boost your ego here or say anything I don't mean, but you've always been the person that's very even keel. You don't get too high, you don't get too low. And so to me, when I look for someone's opinion, and if I want to take anything to it, it's, hey, are they, do they get too high? Do they get too low? I want somewhere right in the middle, because you can remove a lot of emotions and you can make, calculated, whether it's price predictions or analysis. And so for me to see you 2x your, out of all things, your Bitcoin prediction, I was like, all right, I don't know what's going on. Some must be happening. You see the same people, Kathy Wood, Michael Saylor, Standard Chartered, Bitcoin's going to 1 million, 500,000. You're just like, you see that, you're like, okay, yeah. But then you see the analysts that actually know what the hell they're doing, and they make these predictions. It kind of catches your attention. And a lot of people for us are saying this cycle is going to be mainly Bitcoin driven, with a handful of altcoins that are going to rise in value. What do you think about that kind of perspective for this market? A lot of people are pointing to the trade wars, to the tariff wars, a shift in globalization, so to say. Or do you think it's still worth it to hold, 15 to 20 altcoins or a good diversification of altcoins? What are your thoughts?
Look, if Bitcoin goes to 300 and plus $1,000, we'll have an alt season. It's just the nature of markets. If there's that much risk on the table, it's essentially your risk reward and upside in Bitcoin starts getting capped. You go north of $300,000. People look for other opportunities. That money and liquidity flows into altcoins that seem promising at the time. You get your big alt season, your parabolic move, and then that's where the crash occurs from. It's the same thing that happens time and time again. So while I do think that Bitcoin will lead, as it usually does, and Bitcoin dominance could certainly go higher, I do believe that when you start to see a large aggressive move in Bitcoin, which I'm expecting to range from 100 to 300 plus $1,000 in a relatively short period of time, I expect the market to accelerate. When that happens, and you have all that FOMO and capital moving into Bitcoin, you'll have a lot of profit taking on Bitcoin as well, and money flowing to other speculative investments that are tangential to Bitcoin. So
Forrest,
whatever the narrative is at the time.
Let me play devil's advocate here for a second. Okay, so historically, money flow has been Bitcoin. People take profits, large caps or ETH or large caps. Then they take profit from that, mid caps, and then it's a super speculative shit. Then it's the end of the cycle, right? But can I not argue that this cycle, at least for the most part, has been institution driven, at least for Bitcoin? And so if that's true, and a lot of these institutions are going to be the ones that sell Bitcoin for profit, can we really expect them to roll those profits into altcoins if those vehicles are not available on Wall Street? Maybe you don't have 100 ETFs. Maybe you have like 3, XRP, Ethereum, Bitcoin, or maybe throw a few others in there. What do you say to that?
Yeah, I mean, I think you'll still get like the tail end, like your super speculative stuff, pumping, some meme coins in there. But yeah, I mean, I'm super bullish on XRP. I think XRP technically already has an ETF. Another one just launched in Asia. I think there's and I agree with you, but that's primarily why personally I think alt season will mainly occur in what I refer to as suit coins, but basically altcoins that are essentially have CEOs that wear suits, that are just more more attractive to institutions, more attractive to longer term investors, more attractive to traditional finance investors. XRP being the leader there.
Does that mean ETH is
But
dead?
I don't know if ETH is dead, but it certainly doesn't have a narrative right now.
Because I don't see Vitalik wearing a suit anytime soon, unless it's some unicorn suit or something. You know?
I do think I do think we've departed from the kind of like cypherpunk, like decentralized, like coders, building these decentralized systems to, okay, like if this stuff's actually going to plug into the real world and legacy finance, there's a certain level of, there's a certain type of person and certain type of leader and structure and company that probably needs to be behind that.
Awesome. All right. Before I move forward, I want to give a big thank you to everyone tuning in. Make sure you hit the like button. Also, if you're not subscribed to the channel, make sure you are subscribed. Let's talk some altcoins. Where do I want to start? I want to start with a project, Forrest, that you told me about a little over a year ago, or what was it, like 6-7 months ago? It's Virtuals Protocol. And the tokens went from $5, it's at like 55, 60 cents. Pretty big crash, but the team continues to work and build, which is one thing I think we're both super bullish on. And I say this on our show all the time, is when shit hits the fan and the valuation of the token and essentially the company falters by 80 to 90%, what is the team doing, right? And the teams that continue to build no matter what are the ones that you want to have on your radar, and Virtuals Protocol is one of them. And this is their new thing they're doing. And so it's called Genesis. So Forrest, you've been in the trenches a lot. I've been in the trenches, maybe not as much as you, but it's hard to get an early allocation that's not super sniped, and you're not going to go through a 90% dump immediately, whether that's from the founders, the team, or just snipers, the way it's set up. And a lot of chains don't know how to solve for that issue. And that's actually a question I asked Wiki, the founder, when he was doing an interview with me, and he kind of had the same thing. Sounds like they're on their way to solving that issue for the most part with Genesis. So here's the way it works. The more you're active in the virtual protocol ecosystem with their AI agents and obviously the virtual token, you get what's called virgin points. Those points are what allow you to invest in the pre-bonded tokens. And so the prototype tokens, the ones that haven't hit the bonding number yet, to then all the liquidity gets burnt and sent to Uniswap or Aerodrome or wherever. What would happen was a lot of snipers would get in. Before it bonds, it would dump. I would literally watch it in real time to the point where I stopped buying them, because it's like, I don't like, unless you got some crazy algorithm or you're on your computer 24/7, you're going to lose to these snipers. And so that was a big thing. Now, though, with Genesis, the people that have these virgin points, you get an allocation. And so that's how they weed out the snipers. It's not just people that are buying and selling, but people that are holding, people that are active in the ecosystem. So if you've earned points, this is your moment. Ownership of AI agents is no longer gated by snipers and cabals. It's earned through contribution. Genesis is a protocol layer primitive for agent token allocation. It transforms launches into systems of proof where usage, liquidity, and coordination dictate access. Some of the key features: points-based access earned through real participation, on-chain allocation logic, deterministic, transparent, and fair, and guaranteed refund designed to protect contributors. So if this thing doesn't bond or something happens, then they'll refund you your points and your money. The launch mechanic is now protocol native. The sniper era is over, and then it has a link. There was, I believe, one that already launched. It was called Hollywood or Holly. That's up a 15x already. And so, Forrest, what are your thoughts on this? And does this make you more bullish on Virtuals Protocol? A lot of people are turning bearish on this thing.
Yeah, so originally came across Virtuals Protocol at like it was like 1.2 cents, I think. It was $12 million market cap. And met with the team and the founders, and they're the best team in I don't say like all of crypto, but maybe all of crypto, honestly. Of any team that I've personally met, and any team that I know of, they're a very, very, very strong team. They've been able to stick with this project and stick it and take it to billions of dollars. Yeah, I'm very, very bullish on what they're building, and also their ability to continue to pivot and figure out what find product market fit. Originally, they were a gaming DAO. They pivoted out of gaming at a $12 million market cap and into AI. So they've been around for a while. They're well funded. They're smart. They understand tokenomics. They understand incentives. They understand how to address certain issues. If good projects and tokenized agents that people want to own launch on Virtual's protocol, I think they'll be have an advantage in providing the best experience for that meta. If the meta changes, I think that they'll be able to pivot. So I still hold quite a bag of Virtual's protocol. Still bullish on them. Have been since 12 million market cap. I think they're at like 570 million right now. So yeah, I like the team a lot, and I like the project a lot.
Awesome. With that being said, for us, can we actually take a look at a chart for Virtuals? Any spot where you think is a good place to pick up, or are you seeing any setup to where we maybe see a move to the upside or downside?
Yeah, so right now looks very similar to a lot of charts in the sense that it's trying to bottom out. It's also just kind of come down to that 50-cent support level that it's kind of continuing to bounce off of. You're getting a lot of these descending wedges with bullish divergence printing, on the daily or the 4-hour. It's very similar to kind of the bearish divergence that we saw, 3 drives upwards, right? Maybe we get one more drive downwards to 50 cents. That would be your opportunity to pick it up. Sub 50 cents. Otherwise, in the short term, if Bitcoin decides to break out here, which I think it may, the shorter term does look quite good for a lot of tokens right now, but for Virtuals as well, trying to kind of bull flag here off of a low. You also kind of have like a little inverse head and shoulders, some support over here that we've come back down now and retested twice. So trying to break the diagonal and move up to kind of this region where we initially saw some support around the $1 region. Above $1, I think this thing can start flying again. But will really just depend on the meta and the overall market for this thing to run again to these heights. But yeah, I know a lot of people last cycle got very, very bearish on stuff like Axie Infinity and Decentral and all the stuff that was in the meta. They crashed super hard, and then they ripped back to all-time highs on the back half of the bull market. And I think we are entering the back half of the bull market soon.
How long do you think that bull market's going to last for us? You think it's going to be just a violent 3 months? Or you think it'll be a big spurt and then just a grind up, maybe for 6 months, maybe even 12 months?
I think it'll be very violent. A lot of FOMO. I think it'll be very similar to 2017. If I could go to a Bitcoin chart.
Yeah, please.
Let's go to actually this one. And I'll throw on these levels. Got like the monthly. There we go. Maybe the weekly. Yeah, so generally the way Bitcoin moves is it grinds sideways through these kind of psychological resistance levels for quite some time. So 100K is kind of the upper end of that. And then generally the markup to the next resistance levels happens very, very fast in comparison to how long we chopped sideways for. That being said, we've been moving sideways in this range for a very long time for Bitcoin. So maybe we do get a longer bull market, a longer markup period. Maybe it takes a little bit longer to get to 370K than it did to go from 10 to 37 essentially last cycle. And in prior cycles, 1,000 to 3,700 or so happened very, very fast. But you also had lower, slower consolidation periods. I think a lot of people are very they're trying to call cycle top here, and I just don't see it. I see a very bullish chart. I see an inverse head and shoulders that spans 2 cycles, one that was rife with fraud. Keep in mind, like, yeah, we printed post-COVID, but like all of this was no money printer, quantitative tightening, higher rates, fraud, FTX, Celsius, Terra Luna, just destroying crypto. And since that all bottomed out, we've just been moving straight up in a channel, very similar to 2017. So if you look at 2017, you had, let's see here, this super long, not super long, but you had this parallel channel down there before we broke, I think it was $1,000. Once we broke through $1,000, which was also around our prior high, we went vertical from 1,000 to almost 20,000. So we're in a very similar situation where we're fairly close to our prior highs, right? A little bit higher, grinding through this psychological resistance in this parallel channel. Once we get through this, I think you see a very violent markup to, in my opinion, at least 370K. We could, go to higher levels. But yeah, I mean, like, you just have a lot of things too. Like, not only are we finally getting through the resistance, we just have, like, there's now a reason for Bitcoin to go to 370K. Like, there's a trade war. That's the most bullish thing that could happen for Bitcoin. There's a reason for people to buy it. Whereas before, it's just been kind of more speculative in nature. And there hasn't been a reason for Bitcoin to, like, violently move to 370K until Trump put on these tariffs and started this trade war. So with China. So I'm pretty bullish on this. I think it's just a matter of time. This thing gets through 100K, back tests it maybe. Then I think price moves very aggressively in these gaps, very, like, sharp. Like, I think a lot of people will probably, like, turn around and sell their Bitcoin at 130K. And I think that's a huge mistake. Maybe it'll back test 100 or whatever, but I think once you break into this region, you do not want to sell your Bitcoin until we get to the top of this region, which is north of 300K.
And Forrest, can we switch also to XRP? You want to talk a little bit about that too?
Sure.
There we go.
No,
thank you.
Rocco's a big XRP guy.
Rocco would hijack the show to ask for XRP. Good job,
yes,
Rocco.
I took it over. Yeah.
Yeah, let's go to I think the Bitstamp chart shows this. Yeah, so 2 cycles, the similar situation, right? So XRP, here we had our triangle, right? You spend most of the time, right? Most of the time in these, like, long ranges, just being, bound by this psychological resistance. And then price can move very, very quickly through these. Now, last 2 cycles ago, we just zipped straight. We had a little bit of a slowdown in this range, but we just zipped through 2 and then almost through 3 gaps. So far, we've pushed through 1 gap, or we're in the process of pushing through 1 gap. I think we could potentially take out all of this in one go because of how big of a pattern we have here. We have this huge triangle, right? And I think, like, the north of $20 is on the table, anywhere between 20 and 100, which I know is a very broad target range. I think I gave a target of like 37 to 50, which would be kind of right there for XRP. But I also think there's a reason, like, I mean, you got the XRP ETFs, you've got the Hidden Road acquisition, you've got, tokenization, push into stablecoin legislation coming through, the push to tokenize real world assets. You've got custody solutions built by Ripple. I mean, just everything to me, points toward, you've got XRP flipping Ethereum. XRP is now bigger than Ethereum in terms of fully diluted valuation. So if Bitcoin goes to $370,000, that's what all my altcoin price targets are kind of predicated upon. If Bitcoin doesn't go to 370K, then yeah, XRP is probably not going north of 20. But if it does go to $370,000, I think the second largest cryptocurrency, which is XRP, is probably going to perform, just as well, if not better.
Now, Forrest, okay, so I'll throw this up on the screen. I'm sure you get this a lot, but I think one thing that doesn't help when you make predictions like $37 to $50 XRP is, for the last 4 years, you get people that are saying XRP is going to $10,000 and $600, and so it's to the point where, kind of like on the Bitcoin side, where you got it's going to, Bitcoin's market cap is $780 trillion in 20 years. You're just like, So when you naturally say $37 to $50 and people do the math, they're kind of like, this guy's crazy. If you can pinpoint one thing that is a make or break for XRP for it to get to your valuation or to not, what would that one thing be? And you know, I guess in a nutshell, what makes you so damn bullish on this project?
Bitcoin going to 370. Like if Bitcoin goes north of 300, like that's the biggest thing for XRP, is just for that amount of capital to be moving into the crypto ecosystem. So yeah, if Bitcoin tops out, if the top is in for Bitcoin, then I don't think XRP is going to $37. And that's just, you know, like it's just going to be very difficult for that to happen. Yeah, I mean, XRP, it's the second largest cryptocurrency. It's super, super liquid. It's still decentralized, not to the degree of Bitcoin. You've got the XRP ledger. I know everyone says like XRP is centralized. No, like Ripple's the centralized company. XRP ledger is a layer one network similar to Ethereum or Solana. It's just built in a way that is easier for institutions to adopt, and you know, it fits into regulatory compliance models. So yeah, I don't know. I think XRP being the second largest cryptocurrency, having multiple, you know, almost, what is it, 2 cycles now, almost a decade's worth of accumulation. You have regulatory clarity. You've got the case getting dropped. You've got a push into stable coins, a push towards real world asset tokenization. You got the hidden road acquisition that's going to push a lot of liquidity on the XRP ledger to settle the, I think it's like, I don't quote me on this, but I think it's like 10 trillion a year that they settle, or 3 trillion. It's 3 trillion a year that they settle.
Yeah, that sounds right.
Yeah, I think if Bitcoin goes to $370,000, you're going to get a speculative bubble in XRP, just like it's happened in cycles past. Like I think last cycle was a muted cycle across the board for Bitcoin, for a lot of, you know, cryptocurrencies, including XRP, a lot of altcoins. But I think that speculation comes back in a big way if Bitcoin goes to $370,000. Like this is a big change is coming to the world, and I think, you know, Bitcoin's the benefactor of that.
I think for me, the big thing with XRP is I don't think a lot of people talk about the custody side of it and how big that could potentially be. And also their stablecoin. If that does get adoption, maybe not like Tether level, but maybe Circle. What is Circle at $60 billion in valuation? If we can even sniff like 50% of that, that's a lot of traffic coming through the XRPL. And so I think that'll be super beneficial. Now, Forrest, we covered, so on this that you posted, we covered Bitcoin, we covered XRP. Out of the rest, from XLM down, which one are you most confident in? Now, I know you're confident in all of them, but if you were to pick one, say that's the one I would bet my house on. Which one of these would it be?
Assuming Bitcoin and XRP hit their targets, XLM. XLM always runs as beta to XRP. HBAR as well. I mean, Litecoin, $500 Litecoin isn't that crazy of a prediction. I think it's hit 400 a couple times. It's kind of got to, like, I could show the chart on Litecoin, but it wouldn't be that crazy for Litecoin to hit 500, assuming that Bitcoin like 5x's from here. Yeah, ETH 7K, not a crazy prediction. No. I know it is right now because Ethereum's down in the dumps, but imagine a $370,000 Bitcoin with Ethereum at 7K. That's literally the same ETH Bitcoin ratio. That's like ETH is just not dropping in relation to it's, you know, like, you know, 5x for Bitcoin from here, 5x for ETH from here. That's not super bullish on ETH. Hyperliquid, a little bit of a wild card there. I just think in a big bubble, it could run to that next gap up in the psychological levels north of, like, you know, $300. So that one's a little bit, I think, harder to reach. And then Barcoin is funny, but I think it's
$33, bro. That's like a 30x from here.
Yeah, it's like a $33 billion market cap, which is kind of in line with what we've seen in the past out of, like, you know, Doge and Shiba Inu. I think Doge and Shiba Inu ran harder than that. But again, I think if that's really just going to depend on how sticky it is as, like, being the winner in meme coins if Bitcoin's about to run to 300K plus. That, you know, like we've seen meme coin, like, the problem is, like, you get meme coin dispersion, more and more meme coins launch and kind of water down and distract. So, like, you know, people were buying bunk, and then they bought, you know, the KOL steered everyone towards WIF, and then it was PopCat, and then it was, something else. And there's constantly a new thing like taking over and replacing the attention off of the prior one. The thing that's a little bit different about Fartcoin is that it has kind of crossed the chasm in terms of like the legacy world. Like you see, it's so absurd for whatever reason. It's like you never really saw traditional finance or legacy finance people make fun of PopCat really, or make fun of WIF, but they do talk about Fartcoin.
They do.
So it's just a little bit more out there in terms of being able to penetrate a deeper market and more mind share than just the crypto degen space. So that's the justification there. I think it can kind of like just pull a Dogecoin if Bitcoin runs. Doge, not that crazy of a prediction, I don't think. I guess it is from where it's at right now, but I think if it crosses over from $1, it probably runs to 3, but could be wrong there. And then Nano is just a personal favorite, and I think if you kind of get the Bitcoin decentralized, like $77 wouldn't even be that crazy of a market cap. I think it'd be like 7.7 billion. But if you get like the Bitcoin like decentralized, capital control resistant store of value, then you will get some speculation in some of these other like digital cash narratives, like Litecoin, Bitcoin Cash, Monero, Nano. I think like some of that could spill over and like, oh, why are you using Bitcoin when the fees are so high? And because if Bitcoin goes to 370K, like the fees are going to spike. It's the same thing that happens every cycle, and then people kind of like spill over into like Litecoin and say, oh, Litecoin's faster or whatever. I'm not predicting that any of these are going to overthrow Bitcoin, but I do kind of have a dark Nano in there as a dark horse to potentially spill over or to see some spillover in the store of value, decentralized store of value narrative that I think is going to emerge.
You're catching a lot of heat in the chat here, Forrest. People saying you crazy, bro.
Called me crazy when I said XRP was gonna be the top performer.
I remember when you say about Solana, and there was a
you've been right on a lot, man.
Solana was gonna be the top performer.
You've hit the nail on the head with a lot. You were my first 100x. Your Trump play was my first 100x in crypto, and so I don't know if all these will come true. I'm sure maybe a few of them will, but I don't know. I guess my favorite one in here.
Look. If a few of these come true, I don't want to hear any complaining because that's a lot of money to make off of a few. If even one of these becomes true, like, come on.
We'll give you a credit for us, I promise. We'll bring it back on the show and we'll laugh at everyone in the chat who was calling you crazy. I guess for me, and I want the chat also, I want the chat to participate. Out of these price predictions, which one do you think is most feasible for you? Okay. Pick one in this list and just put the ticker in there. I'm looking at this, and the one to me, I think ETH at 7K, I think that's to me a no-brainer. For everything you mentioned and everything I've been mentioning on the show, I'm not going to beat a dead horse. Outside of that, I think Litecoin's a layup also at $500K or $500. But the intriguing one to me is XLM and HBAR. I do think XLM can hit $7. I do think HBAR can hit $4. XLM continues to move up the ranks of RWA. They're the cheapest and fastest when it comes to payments as far as settlement. And they got a great team, man. Jed McCaleb and his team. And so it's just no one talks about it, because it's always dwarfed by XRP, and it's just not a sexy play, right? And so those would be the two I would feel comfortable kind of saying, I would go with those. And so I'm just looking at the chat here. Maninja said XRP. James is voting ETH. Toggle Delay is also ETH. Vision said XLM. And so it's interesting. We'll see. We'll revisit this when the cycle is over. Which actually I will bookmark this so I don't forget. Dude, this thing got 500,000. That's crazy. Is this your biggest, your most viral post you put on X?
It might be. It might be.
It might be.
XLM7, I'm recharting it. XLM7 might be a little ambitious.
You can't walk back, Forrest. You can't walk back, bro. It's too late.
Yeah, you're right. I can't walk it back. But I think like 2 or 3 is a little bit more reasonable. And I do think we could get a blow off like 7. I do think it's entirely possible. But like the chart, like these things all have incredible, like people don't look at the charts. I'll just share my screen briefly here to like XLM. Like people don't respect the magnitude of these chart patterns that have been, just sitting here accumulating in a range for 7 years, going back to 2025, going back to like 2018. Just the standard markup on these patterns, and you're looking at like $2 plus XLM. People would have like this other thing about like these price targets is it's like before the election when XLM was at 9 cents, and I think you deserve credit for this because I think you were hot on XLM before the election. If you'd have said it was going to run from 10 cents to 60 plus cents in like 20 days, like that's about what it was. I think it was, if you'd have said it's going to go to 60 cents in 19 days, that's the other thing is like people don't realize how fast these markets can move. Like people would have called you crazy. I mean, like you'd have made a ton of money longing XLM from 9 cents to 63 cents in 19 days. But people would have called you crazy. Hey, in 3 weeks, this is going to 6x, and it's already a large cap cryptocurrency. It's like worth billion. Like the thing that I don't get about like I know these price predictions sound crazy, but it's like, have you looked at the charts like where this has actually happened before? If you looked at the charts where XLM went up 55,000%, and then the prior cycle went up 2,800%, and that was a muted cycle. Right. We're not even, 2,800% would be $2.28. So it's not like I know people like we've been in this range for so long. Nobody believes it can go up that far or that aggressively. And maybe I'm wrong. Like I'm open to being wrong. It wouldn't be the first time I've been wrong, but it's like this has happened before. This has happened before. And like the patterns are there that this is just now breaking out after a huge thing. It's like, I don't know. I kind of want to bet on it. I'm of the opinion that if it's going to accumulate for 7 years and then after 7 years break out, why would I not bet on it going up if I'm not going to get this opportunity for another potentially 7 years? I don't know. It just doesn't seem that crazy to me when you like look back at the charts and you say like it was like I was there. It did this. It went up 52,000% in a very short period of time. This is what markets do. Like Tesla, like back in, I think it was 2020, like 10x'd. Everyone was like, oh, it's already trading at parity with Ford. And then it just 10x'd on top of Ford. Like markets are speculative. They do this from time to time. And like, I don't think it's that crazy for these like big price targets to come out every now and then. But I don't know, I could be wrong. And, I'll own up to it if I'm wrong, but give it a few more months. Give it 3 to 6 months and we'll see.
Give the men a chance, damn it. Also, don't forget, we're going to be giving away $100 today from yesterday's show. Very simple. All you had to do was watch our stake video and comment stake, and then it's going to pick a winner. I got a winner in mind. You're going to have to wait towards the end of the show, and I'll announce it. Couple things real quick for us I want to get your thoughts on. So the mantra / Ohm kind of collapse. I don't know how plugged in you are to that. But there's, which by the way, if you haven't watched the interview with JP Mullins, the founder, and CoffeeZilla, I would highly recommend you go watch it. So there's a lot of talk, and they're trying to figure out what should we do with the team tokens, and then everyone wants them to burn it, and then they're doing. So there's a lot going on. Forrest, do you have any insight or thoughts into this mantra thing? And to you, is this just a one-off event that unfortunately caused the price to tank? And that you see it as value to accumulate it at sub 60 cents? Or is this one where you're just kind of staying away from, there's better projects out there?
I'm staying away from it, not because it might not be, it could be an amazing opportunity. I just don't it's outside of my circle of knowledge, my circle of competence. I don't know what happened. I read the headlines. I saw the chart. I don't know enough about this project to say whether this is a good buy or not. I don't know the team. I don't know if they're honest or dishonest. I don't know the investors. I don't know if they're honest or dishonest. So I know so little about this that personally, I'm just going to stay away because I don't have an edge. I only want to participate in markets if I think that I have an edge over or more knowledge than the other market participants. And this is one that I think I would probably have less knowledge, if not the same. So I don't have an edge here. I'm just staying away. Who knows? It could be a great project and bounce back. I just don't know.
Yeah, for me, I looked at it like, damn, like when something drops that big, that fast, literally in 30 minutes to drop 90%, you're like, it's a hack or they rugged. And it was neither. It was, oh, one person got liquidated. I'm sorry, but if one person trading or whatever the hell they were doing can tank the entire project's price and valuation by 92% in a matter of minutes, I'm staying away from that. And I'm kind of in your camp, Forrest. I wouldn't be surprised if people who bought it at 50 cents, this thing runs up to $5. That's a 10x. Cool, man. Great. Take your profit. Don't leave the money on the table. I think it's going to continue to go up. But for me, I'm personally staying away from it. There's so many other valuable projects out there that are on steep discount that I would feel more comfortable putting my money in. I do want to take a peek at the altcoin market. I'm going to pull up crypto bubbles here really quick. So on the day, Fartcoin down 16.3%, although it was the biggest gainer, like 3 out of the last 5 days, seeing a little bit of a pullback. The other second biggest loser is Hex, followed by Radium. It's funny, we saw Pump.Fund come out and announce an implementation of a product on their platform that's a direct competitor to Radium. And then Radium comes out and announces a product on their platform that's a direct competitor to Pump.Fund. So there's a little bit of a tit for tat back and forth going there. The biggest gainers are Flare, BitTensor, which I am uber bullish on, and IMX. Anything kind of stand out to you here for us at first glance? I don't know, just kind of in a general sense, I guess.
Not so much. It looks like AI with Tau doing okay, and then Fartcoin's going to be a volatile ride. It's going to be a volatile ride. If this thing can break out north of a couple $1 billion, I think you're going to see a lot of big up days, a lot of big down days. It could just go to zero. It's a coin called Fartcoin. It could do what Popcat did and go to zero, bonk, Pepe, whatever. But what I will say is I do think it may have crossed the chasm, and it could be the chosen one for this cycle. I'm a little bit optimistic on it, but we'll see. It's still pretty undecided. Full disclosure, I'm long, but if this goes much lower, I'll probably close out and then look to re-enter if it gives a good setup again. But otherwise, kind of I think the stock market's closed today, so crypto is kind of just relatively flat. Nothing too crazy happening.
I personally don't hold any Fartcoin. But yeah. Forgot what I was going to say. I want to get your thoughts on this, Forrest. Arbitrum launches Converge blockchain to power $7 billion in real-world asset push in DeFi. Okay, so Arbitrum is an L2 for ETH. So ETH Layer 2 Arbitrum has launched a new project called Converge, which is its own blockchain for processing RWAs and on-chain finance. In tandem, Athena Labs and Securities, which is a BlackRock product, are migrating more than $7 billion in assets to the Converge network. But listen to this. One of the major innovation involves transaction fees. Thus, instead of a native token like ETH exhibiting high volatility, Converge uses 2 stable coins as the gas tokens. My immediate thought is this is an L for ETH. We know Uniswap is going away from also leveraging the Ethereum token as gas fees with their Unichain. And now Arbitrum with the RWA play. What are your thoughts on this and Arbitrum's partnership with, I think Securitize is the big one. Are you, does this make you want to get some Arbitrum in your portfolio? And then what are your thoughts on it going away from using Ether as the transaction fee?
No, honestly, I won't touch any like I think the layer 1, layer 2 trade, like the infrastructure trade, is totally over. It, it the only reason to long one of those tokens is if the token itself is used as liquidity. So like, why did Solana do so well? Because there were so many meme coins that used Sol and tied up Sol as liquidity. It constricted the supply. Same thing with Ethereum and NFTs. Same thing with 2017 altcoin run with Bitcoin. Like Binance had the Bitcoin pairs. You tied up a ton of Bitcoin as liquidity. Same thing with virtual protocol. They were smart. That team's very, very smart. They used virtual token as the liquidity pair. It creates a supply constriction and a nice flywheel for pushing things higher. If they're not using Arbitrum token as the liquidity for any of this, like the gas fees are nominal. Like gas fees don't drive demand in a very real way, in my opinion. Short of just very, very speculative timeframes, which don't last super long. And also if they're generating a lot of demand for gas fees, it's a bad thing. It means gas fees are expensive, and the chains, like we saw how that worked out with ETH. So I don't like the layer 2 infrastructure trade at all. I don't see how this benefits the Arbitrum token. I don't see how it benefits ETH. That's just like, it's like even like Unichain. Unichain is paying like $100,000 in Uniswap token incentives every single day, and they still can't get the same stablecoin liquidity that you have on Ethereum. So
it's a good point.
It's just I don't know. I just don't like the layer 2 or even layer 1 tokens at this point anymore, with the exception of like, I think Solana could do well just based off of the amount of Solana liquidity that gets used. But I'm very hesitant to buy any layer 2. And there's just so many of them, like so much competition.
Yeah. So sucks for you, Polygon. Man, Polygon, what a disaster that was, huh? I remember I'd bought something like 80, 90 cents. I am so underwater on that position. But hey, you can't win them all, And then, Forrest, I do want to ask you one more thing. So this chart here, this is the total 3 chart, which excludes Bitcoin and ETH. Okay. Breakout of this falling wedge pattern. And then we've gotten a confirmation retest, and we're kind of grinding higher. Now, someone sees this and says, okay, well, how do I make money on this? You can't really trade a total 3 index somewhere unless you know somewhere, for us, that I don't. So if this thing plays out and we get a push to the upside, give me your top 3 that you want to be allocated to in the next 3 months.
XRP and any beta on XRP. So that would be XRP, XLM, and then ALGO looks great. HBAR looks good. Ondo. But I'd say ALGO probably looks the best. The ALGO chart looks exactly like this. So if you go to ALGO, it has the exact same wedge set up as well.
Let's go to ALGO. Where is Algorand?
What about Flare? You guys have heard about it?
Flare, yeah. What are your thoughts on Flare, Forrest?
Flare airdropped a lot of their supply. Yeah, so if you go to like the log view, it's a pretty clean wedge as well. Flare tends to run actually in line with XRP as well. So Flare's probably a decent beta on XRP. I just don't know a ton about the project.
I think they just start offering like
Flare?
Yeah, custody, like you can earn a yield or something like that.
I did some digging into Flare, and this was a while ago, and the Songbird, and I loved everything they're doing. I haven't kept up with Flare, so I
know there are some reason
about it, but yeah. I mean, for me, XRP is great, but I look at like niches and sectors, and so I think AI and I think institutional level stablecoin / yield, I think those are really going to move up. And so when I look at something like Convex Finance or Curve DAO, Athena, Asymmetry Finance, although that's a little more riskier. And then when I look at AI, the first one that I am the most bullish on is BitTensor. actually, the news came out, I think it was today or yesterday. Now you can spin up a subnet within a subnet. And you can allocate your dynamic tau and stake it to the subnet of the subnet. And so all this is driving value and builders into the BitTensor ecosystem. And so I'm hyper bullish on BitTensor. They got great tokenomics as well. And so I think only 21 million with like 8.7 circulating. And so for me, I'm uber bullish on BitTensor AI, and then the institutional stablecoin plays. And then I don't know, man. I think ETH is going to have its day. I could be wrong, but $1,500 ETH just seems so undervalued. And so that's kind of my thoughts. I do want to give a big thank you to our channel sponsor today. Today's show is brought to you by Cam's Blue Wire Technology. If you have a business, you want to maximize your networking, IT, and your cybersecurity, visit bluewiretech.com or click the link in the description of the video. You know, they've been very instrumental in us setting up our networking here in studio. And with that being said, I have chosen a winner for the $100 giveaway. It was very simple. All you had to do was watch our stake video and then come and stake. And so the winner I pick is Vision. So Vision, and I'm going to share my laptop here. Vision, I don't know if you're in here. I hope you are. You are the winner, my friend. And so comment below this comment here. And then comment your handle on X, the exact handle at, and then I will DM you and I'll ask you for your wallet address and I'll send you $100 in USDT, my friend, or USDC. And so a big thank you to all of you that participated. We had quite a lot of you that watched the video and commented. So big thank you to all of you supporting the channel. And so Vision, again, underneath this comment here, comment your X handle and I will reach out to you and we'll get you that information over. With that being said, that'll do it for the show today. I want to thank every single one of you. Also want to thank our man Forrest. Highly recommend, if you're serious about research and making money, go to 16.ai and then get access to his Discord. A lot of amazing things in there. Not just from Forrest, but, and correct me if I'm wrong, Forrest, but you have token gated access to some products that would cost a lot of money that you make available to the people in your Discord, correct?
No. So, I mean, we've done deals in the past where it's like, you know, you can get like a 50% discount on some of those tools if you want to use them yourselves, but we have data feeds. So we just have like channels that, you know, feed in some of their posts from Twitter and some of the charts that they post, but not free access to those tools themselves, but discounted access. We do have some deals if you're looking for a high block subscription or, you know, a number of different other subscriptions. You can, you know, go and if you get access to our Discord community, you can get like a discount code for those tools as well.
Awesome. I would highly recommend it, guys. I'm telling you, that's where I got my first 100x in crypto. And so big shout out to you, Forrest. And so that link is 16.ai. I think we have actually, let me just post it in the comments. I think we have an affiliate link in the comments in the description of the video. It should be in there.
If it's not, I can get you a new one.
It's not. Okay. All right. Well, here, I'll just drop the website in here. 16.ai. Pretty simple. 16.ai. Go over there. Yeah, Forrest is our man. He's been with us for a long time. Forrest, as always, we love you. We appreciate you. Rocco, thank you so much for asking for that XRP chart today. Just kidding. No, behind the scenes, a lot goes on. And we had a couple people come through the last week and a half, and they're always like, they see the board Rocco runs, and they're always like, holy shit, like, how did this even happen? So big shout out to you, Rocco. Always putting on quality production, my friend. And we all hope you have a great Easter weekend. Happy Good Friday. Spend some time with family. And hopefully you get the golden Easter egg if you do Easter egg hunts. Are you doing an Easter egg hunt, Forrest, at your house where your wife hides eggs and you got to go find them?
No, we already did one last weekend.
Yeah. My wife makes me do it with the kids. I feel like an idiot. Anyways, Rocco, thank you all so much for tuning in. We appreciate every single one of you. Have an amazing weekend. We hope you enjoy the content. And we'll see you guys next week. Until then, peace.
Buona Pasqua. Ciao a tutti e peace.
city, crypto. Everybody know we here for entertainment and info. Gonna show you how to get that big dough. So every day stay tapped in for big facts, no capping. With Bitcoin, if you're in, then you win. We divide the pie with no fraction. It's Big Rob, David. I split the game, but they gave it. Name the coin that's your favorite. I got dry powder, why save it? To the OGs, new beginners. Special shout out to the well members. Buy a dip, sell winners. Ain't really nothing you can tell,